Okay, now I'm going to address my sisters. Proverbs chapter 31, 28 and 29 are the last few verses. It says, her children arise and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. And that's the way our mothers should be. My mother died when I was 13. But one thing I do remember is that she had great respect for my father. She was a good mother to me. And my other siblings were too young to even really remember much about her because they were babies. And I had one older sibling, a sister. And the things that I remember about my mother was that she was very loving to me, and she had great love for her children. She had great respect for her husband. I remember that. She died very young at 33 years of age from cancer. But those are things that I remember. Now I'll tell you a woman who I remember who died in 1992. And that was my father's maternal grandmother. She was, I just have to say, a tremendous woman. She really was. And even though she has passed, I was doing a project with talking to her 4 remaining children. They're all daughters. And let me tell you, really, before I even go there, I just want to say, growing up, she was praised a great deal by her children and grandchildren. And she was the type of, for them, a grandmother and a mother that I think so many women aspire to be. And so many want to be known, have that type of reputation. Boys and Men sang that song, Mama. It sang that a couple of generations later. But my great-grandmother was that type of mama. And just her daughters spoke of her with such reverence, and including their father too, my great-grandfather. They spoke with such reverence, though, because she was quite a unique woman. She knew how to keep her family unified. Those women, because the men, my great uncles, died before I was born. But the women in the family who were still alive had such reverence for their mom. It was unbelievable. And a few of the grandchildren who had actually lived with her, to this day, you're talking 20 some odd years later after her death, they still get teared up because of the great love that woman showed to them. And the grandchildren who would go to her house, this is well before daycare, she wanted her grandchildren there with her, and during the summertime, and she treated those children with such great love that they still speak in reverence of her today. She was a Christian. She was Catholic, but she was really what a Christian woman aspires to be. She had great respect for her husband, and she had great love from her children, so they all praised her. It was so much so that she had such wisdom that on many of the decisions with the children, from what I was told, my great-grandfather, because of her wisdom and her love, my great-grandfather would just accede to her. Even though she would discuss things with him, he acceded to her. Because she had that unique ability to live as a Christian, not as a Christian should. And even some of the stories that have been passed on to me from her childhood, from my great aunts, from what they told me from her childhood, that even as a young girl, she had this unique ability to unify and to be loving towards her family members, her brothers. So I think that's what a lot of women aspire to be, especially black women. They want that matriarchal respect. But that comes at a cost. That comes with great effort. See, as the scripture says, is that in Proverbs 21, is that this mother, or this woman, this wife and mother is praised by her children and grandchildren, or her children and her husband, because of who she was as a person and how she treated the family. And if you go through Proverbs chapter 31, it shows that she was a very skilled woman, but it also says that she's rare. So it takes a lot of effort, to become a Christian woman in that way. Today we have diverged so much from that we don't see those type of Christian women, those type of women, period. We don't see that often. These stereotypes are what prevail. As I had mentioned, that movie Shaft at the beginning, that is what's promoted. That's what's seen to be a strong black woman. And really, it's not. I'm just going to tell you, there's some statistics. I think that sisters, you should go and check these out for yourself as to the status of black women in this country. And I'm going to tell you, black men aren't doing that well, but you all are doing worse than us. And it was back in the 50s, even if you go back, it was black women who made the decision not to marry black men, and not to marry at all, and to diverge from the family. It was the black women that did that. They started diverging from black men in the 50s. Black men didn't start diverging from black women until the 60s, according to statistics, blackdemographics.com, and which comes from the CDC. So if you go back and look and see that it was the women who, I guess, felt oppressed, the whole feminist thing, and broke away from the men first. So I'm not saying the men are any better from breaking away from, separating from marriage and not desiring marriage, but really, quite frankly, there are more black men married than there are black women, because black men in general want to be married. Really, most of us do. A lot of us, quite frankly, have accepted this mindset, who have internalized this hatred that, no, I'm not going to get married, I'm not going to have children, I'm not going to continue. That's just, anyway, that's ridiculous. Why would you want to kill off your own? That makes sense. No, I'm just going to kill it off by not having kids. I'm opposed to having more black children. Come on now. Anyway, to internalize this stuff, this hatred, to internalize it, both men and women, black men and black women. Yeah, there's, for you two sisters, it's time to draw a line in the sand. Because you know what, there are quite a number of you out there who are doing well, who respect your husband. But you know what? And I do feel for you in the sense that you're not really surrounded by black women who respect their husbands, so it's hard to find another black woman who respects her husband. But you too are the light of the world. I'm going to use this word, man up. Okay. If you've got family members, sisters, and all that who want to be in the black girl magic and the black girls rock and the black, well, whatever, I don't care. Man up. You are the example, not them. You are. Stand up for it. But if you're going to be a Christian black woman married to a black man, then be a Christian black woman married to a black man. I mean, and if you marry someone of some other race, that's fine. I don't care if they're Christian. I don't care if they're from another race. It's just as long as it's Christian, because I'm only talking to Christians. What does the scripture say for a Christian? It says, wives, submit to your husbands, as it is fitting for those who belong to God. So the submitting to your husbands, the Greek word there means placed under an arrangement. The Christian arrangement, understand this, all right? The Christian arrangement is that the man is head of his wife. That's it. It is, we don't have to go off into, a long discussion about scenarios and all of this. If you're going to be a Christian, you're going to be a Christian woman, you submit to your husband. That's the arrangement. That's it. And I'm going to tell you the truth, it's not hard to do. If you are a Christian woman who has a job, it's not your own business, guess what you got to do? You got to submit to your boss. You know how to do it there, you can do it at home. And the real reason why, I'm going to tell you, I'm just going to straight say it. The real reason why it's not done in the home is because black women don't value their black men. That's the real reason. That is the reason. There is no value or reward for respecting the black men. You don't see it. But you got to value your husband. If you want him to value you, value him. Ephesians 5, it talks about the things for a wife. It repeats the same thing for wives. This means submit to your husbands as to the Lord. As the church submits to Christ, so wives should submit to your husbands in everything. Husbands must love their wives, true. Each of you must also love his wife as he loves himself. But notice, the wife must respect her husband. And let me go even deeper for you in this. If you read through the Bible and you come across the word respect, most often that word is translated entrepo. It means to turn attention to in a riveted way. It's almost as though you're in the presence of someone great when it says entrepo, and you're listening to them speak. And that word is used, for instance, in Matthew 21:37, and also in Hebrews 12:9. In Hebrews 12:9, it's actually talking about children respecting their parents because of what the parents taught them and how they disciplined them. So it talks about respect there. So that word means to be that you turn your attention to someone in a riveted way. Interestingly, though, sisters, that is not the word used in Ephesians chapter 5 when it says wives must respect her husband. The word used there is phobeo. Generally speaking, the word phobeo relates to fear. Okay? Fear, reverence, have reverence for, give reverential obedience, deeply respect. Deeply respect. In other words, when you stop and think about what that means, is that a Christian wife would so deeply respect her husband simply because that's the arrangement that God put into place for her well-being and protection. So she knows it comes from the Lord, comes from God, through Christ, through her husband, to her. The arrangement itself should require the utmost of respect. But wives should then, because of where her husband was placed by God for her protection and her betterment, should have a deep respect, a reverential obedience to this man because of this arrangement. So when you think about the depth of that, you have to know what men in general care about in order to be a respectful wife to it. Look, men want respect in various ways. We want you to understand that we have to work in behalf and achieve for our family. And we just have to achieve. We like accomplishing things. We want to provide for and protect our family. You got to respect that. So we make decisions that you may think that your idea is good, but your idea may come into conflict with a man's desire to protect and provide for his family. And he may say no, and listen, he may not know why he's opposed to it. He doesn't even know why, but just something in his core tells him that no, that's not a good idea. He can't argue the point with you because he doesn't know why, but it's just something that opposes to him. It's because men have to provide for and protect their family. We actually need to do that. We actually need to do that. We have to, a man who has a child with a woman that he loves, there is nothing that's going to get in the way of that man protecting his family, including you. When he looks at that child and says, oh, nothing's going to block me from protecting this child, providing for this child. Especially a Christian man. But by nature, that's what a man does. You are not going to get in the way of him providing for and taking care of his child. Especially if he's a Christian man and if he has a legacy of men before him, fathers in the home before him. No, there's nothing that would get in that way. So you may want certain things, but he's thinking about the provisions for his family, his children. So he tells you no, and now you want to argue about it. He don't know why he don't want this, why he doesn't agree. He says no, and you want to argue. The reason is because we have an inner desire, an internal desire that we don't fully understand the depth of, that we have to protect our families and provide for them. So when he says no, no means no. I mean, how hard is that? No means no. Don't argue with him. He's not being ignorant. I mean, think about the man. What type of man you married? If you married a Christian man who's endeavoring to be a man, a Christian man, and he tells you no, no means no. And it's usually surrounding something that has to do with his ability to take care of his family. You know, my great-grandfather, I'm going to go back to him. My great-grandfather actually had colon cancer and didn't miss a day of work. What my aunts told me was he was going to work to provide for his children. He had 11 children. Most of them were gone by then, okay? But he still had children, and he had a couple of grandchildren in the house because some of the couple of his daughters had died. One in particular had died, and they had grandchildren in the house. And so he had his job. He's working into his 60s, going into his 70s. And he had colon cancer. So he had a colostomy bag attached. And what those daughters and my great-grandmother would do, my great-aunts and my great-grandmother, is every morning they got up, cleaned that colostomy bag, taped him up, taped that bag secure, fixed his lunch, and sent him out the door. Why? Because he was going to provide for his family. A man with colon cancer needs to be resting. But look, he lived to be 100 or something, so that didn't stop him. But he needs to be resting and letting his body heal. But he refused. He refused. Why did he refuse that? Because he had to provide for and protect his family. And you know what my great-grandmother did? She stood by him on that. She may have told him, well, no, you need to do this. And he said no. No means no. I'm going to provide for and protect my family. So when a man says no to you, and if he's a quality man, he's not saying no out of ignorance. Maybe he doesn't know why he's saying no, but I'm telling you, that is the majority of the reason. The biggest reason is because he loves his family and there's something in him to provide for and to protect. Another thing that men care about is his authority, leading and serving. Not all men are great leaders. Not all men have that personality to lead. Some of them can follow, but you know what? Following many times is an example of a great leader. Because look, my dad had a strong leadership quality that was passed on to me too. My sister has a leadership quality about herself. It's just, it's just something inherited, and that's okay. But in the end, I follow Christ. I think I'm doing my best to be a great follower. But in that, the ones behind me, I lead. And I think all men are like that. When to lead our families, sisters, we have to analyze decisions. We have to think about things like that. So when we are thinking on matters, we can't give you an answer right away. We're trying to weigh some options. We're not trying to shoot from the hip. We're trying to do things the right way. So you have to show, you must show that you value your husband by treating him with respect. Let's go a step further. If you have a son, your son will learn his own value by watching how you treat your husband. He's gonna learn that he is valuable. And let me tell you something that listen, this is heartbreaking. I live in one of those cities. In this day and age, this is in August of 2019 when I'm recording this. So this may not, if you listen to this after that time period, you can just reflect back when Donald Trump and Elijah Cummings got into a shouting match. And Donald Trump, say what you want about him, Donald Trump came out with some truth, some reality of the situation in Baltimore and Chicago. And see, Donald Trump did it again with Rahm Emanuel in the past. These young black boys running around fatherless, raised by generations of women, shooting and killing each other. I talked to a police officer, and the police officer was telling me, because we have the same thing here in my city, St. Louis, and the police officer was telling me that if you look closely, from his experience on the ground, these boys are not killing each other over any other reason than they have feminine qualities, feminine emotions, because they don't have fathers around to balance them. So they're running around killing each other, not for any sort of gain, but just because they were mad and they're overly emotional. And it's happening in Chicago, Baltimore, Detroit. It's happening in these black cities. And listen, let me tell you something. You had these women running out here with pussy hats on and all this other stuff about Donald Trump. No one's rioting over our black boys being killed by other black boys. The fact is that black boys are being killed, and no one riots over that. These mothers aren't rioting over that. That breaks. It's heartbreaking, because I have a son. It's heartbreaking to see this. No one cares. No one is saying we got to do something. So that's not a priority, is it? Because these boys don't know their value. They don't know their value. See, but if you had your husband there and you treated him with respect, the boys would know their value, because you're going to treat him with respect. And the husband is going to insist that son learn from him on how to be respected. Even as I learned from my father, my son will learn from me. Even as my father learned from his father. My grandfather, he's been dead over 10 years now, but I got to tell you something about him. He had a lot of wisdom, in my opinion. And he knew his value. That's the key thing. He knew his value. The stories he told me about him growing up and decisions that he made from watching his older siblings, my grandfather knew his value, and he wasn't going to allow anyone to take that from him. And sure, it was they had some difficult times when he and my grandmother were married, but you know what? He knew his value, and he demanded that he be treated with respect. He told me a few things that he had done. He wasn't a perfect man, but he did a few things to make sure that my grandmother respected him, that she valued him. And you know what? She did. She did. My father and my aunt would tell me stories about the plans my grandfather had, and how my grandmother would support him in anything that he did. My grandfather didn't want to work for anyone. He had his own businesses, and one of the things that she had done to keep his books, she went and took a class on accounting, bookkeeping rather. This is, you're going back in the 50s. But she took a class on bookkeeping so that she could keep his books and keep his business. Now, she had her own full-time job. She had 2 children, but she kept the books for him to support him in his businesses. And they supported one another. She had a nephew that my father was close to. Well, he was close to all of his cousins, but one in particular, and she really supported him. He had some struggles. His mother had died. He had some struggles, but to help him to have a good example of a man, and he told me the story too, my cousin, he told me the story too. My grandfather hired him at his job, so he would just be able to see a good man every day. A good man who loved and took care of his family every day. He worked for my grandfather. So she stuck by him. She valued him. And my grandfather demanded that he be valued. And what I'm saying to you, my Christian sisters, is that you have to value your men, your husbands, your sons. They need to know what their value is, and they will know their value not by what you say, but how you treat them. That's what's most important. A lot has been made about the education, getting educational attainments. Women and black women getting educational attainments. For real, we don't care. Your educational achievement means nothing to us. Your respect for us is what means something. That's what it's qualities, really, isn't it? It's just qualities. How do you treat me? And that's what women want too. They want their men to love them, right? Isn't that what you want? You want to be treated well. Men want to be treated well. And an educational achievement speaks nothing to the character of the person as to how they will treat someone else. So what we want is to be respected, deeply respected, revered by our wives. That's what we want. Respect what we do. And we're not perfect, you're not perfect, no one's expecting perfection, but we're expecting effort. And if you take the time to read Proverbs 31, starting really at verse 13 down to the end of the chapter, and look, here's what it says about this woman. She's trustworthy, her husband trusts her, she treats him well. She knows how to keep herself busy, she's good with money, she knows how to take care of her household, she knows what goes on in the house. She's wise, she gives good advice, she loves God. And that's what we want. We want those type of women. So you should be the type of woman that your husband praises when you're not around. He praises you to his friends, he praises you to his children when you're not around. That's the type you should be. And I'm going to say this to you too. If you step into that role and fulfill it, the same in 1 Corinthians 7:15 applies to you as it applies to men. If you have a man who's a noodle back and weak and is determined to stay in there, same thing. There's the door. You're going to treat him with respect, and then he's not going to treat you with the love that you just demanded, that you demand, that Christ demands he treat you with. There's the door. He can go. I guarantee you Christ will find you another one. Because let me tell you something. I deal with black men all the time. I deal with men of different races. But I will say with black men and white men. We'll just go with the black and white thing. I deal with black men and white men all the time. And let me tell you something. And y'all listen to me. Black men and white men are so starved for respect nowadays that to find a woman who would treat them with respect, these men would give up the world for them. We are so starved. I ain't saying we, I'm saying we as a collective. I ain't starved for it. I got a good one, that's why I waited. We are starved as men, especially in this country, for it. And that means that we can recognize fool's gold, and we won't know it's fool's gold because she can pretend. But we're in such a desperate situation that we'll choose the wrong one, you know. But a woman who knows how to treat a man with respect, boy, I tell you, we'll see her right away and jump right to that woman. I'm talking about, you know, men of all colors, because that's what we want. We want women to treat us with respect. I mean, that's a reality. You know, so, and like I said, I think back to that. I think back to that song from Otis Redding, and sisters, I'm gonna bring this to a close. But I think back to that song with Otis Redding, and quite frankly, sisters, y'all got to do better, for real. You know, you all have to do better. These stereotypes of women, and black women especially, these stereotypes are just that. They're stereotypes. Those are internalized hatred, caricatures of what a woman is supposed to be, especially a Christian woman. And those women are not happy. You can do the research yourself and see that of all the races in this country, men and women, and all races, black women are doing the worst, not black men. In the past, we were doing the worst, but no, it's you all that are doing the worst. So when you guys stop and think about this, when you see these types of things, you just got to do better. Who you are as a Christian woman should be shown very easily. You have to do better for your husbands, for your children, your daughters especially, your sons. I mean, boy, so many of these boys have died. But you have to do better for them. Respect and value your husbands and your sons. Now, it goes without saying that you're going to value your daughters, but black women have been doing so much for their daughters as it is, and the sons have seemingly fell behind. But no, quite frankly, they haven't. It's the black women who have fallen behind. So again, as I say that to you, my sisters, I want to go back to that song that Aretha Franklin popularized. But it was Otis Redding who wrote it and sang it first. Just think about some of the lyrics of the song. He said, "You can do me wrong while I'm gone, but all I'm asking is for a little respect when I get home. Hey, little girl, you're sweeter than honey, and I'm about to give you all of my money. But all I want you to do is just to give it to me. Give it respect when I get home. Respect is what I want from you. Respect is what I need." Go listen to the words of that song for real. Listen to the words of that song. And I'm telling you, this is what men want. I mean, really, you can fool us. you can fool us into thinking that we got the most respectful, loving wife be cheating on us all behind our back. But when we come home and we get all this respect, we don't even care. We won't even pay attention to it. Why? Because we're getting filled with the respect that we need. I want to go back to that scripture in Proverbs 31. Her children arise and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Honor her for all that her hands have done, and let her works bring her praise at the city gate. We want a wife, we want a mother, we want our children, we want all of them to be able to praise. We want the type of woman that all of us can praise. So be that type of woman for us. Be the type of wife that treats us with respect. Teach our daughters how to treat men with respect. And I tell you, we'll give you the world. We will.